What's up guys, Firearms here, and today we're going to be talking about the least reliable firearms I've ever owned, as well as the most reliable firearms I've ever owned. But before we get started, hit the like button, drop a comment down below, subscribe. Also tell me in the comments, which side do you think has been more reliable? But before we get started, I also want to mention one thing. You can get a budget-oriented firearm for $250 that runs thousands of rounds, not a single hiccup, runs defensive ammo perfectly, not a single problem. You can also get a Glock, you can get a Sig, you can get a CZ, you can get a Walther right out of the box, plagued with issues. You can get a $2,500 firearm, runs terribly. That's just facts, right? And with my experience with firearms, what I've learned is it just comes down to bad luck. Like, you'll get a firearm that you've been waiting for so long and you're so anticipated and everything like that, and then it's just a dud. But then you also just randomly pick up some used firearm that's beat down and it runs like crazy. And that's exactly what I've experienced. And today we're going to go over that. So, if you guys pick the left side as being the least reliable, you're 100% right. If you pick the right side as being the most reliable, once again, 100% right. And don't go anywhere, because after we go over the least reliable pile, we're going to talk about something funny that actually outperformed these firearms. So let's get into it. So out of all these on the left, this is the least reliable. This is the Beretta Pico. Yes, this is a fact. The thinnest production 380 in the world. Thinner than the LCP, thinner than the Bodyguard, thinner than any other 380 in the world. Ask any holster maker, ask anybody. That's a fact. Look at this thing. It almost looks like it's plagued with issues from the start. I mean, look at this grip. You get like 1¼ finger, 1½ fingers on it. It's actually a smooth shooter when it shoots, but the trigger's garbage. But it's a pocket pistol, so that trigger is your safety. But at the same time, after 100 rounds or so, this thing has not been able to eat a hollow point since. I don't know what it is. It just failure to feed, failure to feed, failure to feed. So I'm thinking it's the guide rod of the spring. I haven't modified it or anything like that, but someone did mention you can modify the spring a little bit, file something down, I think they said. I took a screenshot of the comment, and that might fix the issue. But the Beretta Pico has been a dumpster fire, probably why Beretta stopped making them. Next up. Now this is not the Ruger SR9C. My first Ruger SR9C was plagued with issues. It was terrible. And actually, it was one of my first like 3 or 4 firearms I ever got. And I absolutely love this thing because the ergonomics are on point, the shootability. I also had the stainless steel version. The trigger's great. It's just a good shooting firearm, and it's that perfect size. And it takes a 17-round mag as well as a 10-round mag. And it had terrible issues. And it was a brand new Ruger. Now this one I picked up used at a used shop, and it runs flawlessly. Not a single issue, eats every hollow point, not a single problem. So once again, it all comes down to luck. So far, my SR9C has been absolutely great. My Sig P365, when I first got it, I wasn't sure how I felt about SIGs at the time. I shot metal SIGs and bigger SIGs and stuff like that, and I liked them. But the P365 XL series, I didn't know what to think about it. A lot of good stuff, a lot of bad stuff. You know, everyone was talking about them, but you got to give them a shout out because they are the ones who created this magazine style, or at least made it popular. I know Kel-Tec made the stack and a half at first, but it never caught fire. Sig really took off, and that's why I have my second favorite firearm, the Hellcat. That's why you have the Shield Plus, you know, the MC2C, the Canik MC9, all those is because of Sig, so you got to give them a shout out. But this was also having major issues, and it was after 400 rounds where the slide locked back, and I could not get it to go forward no matter what. And so I took it to a gunsmith, and he saw that some of the springs were out of spec. He took care of it, and it's ran flawless ever since. And obviously, it was before I put any of this new grip module or anything. It was a completely bone stock P365 XL. So I don't want to hear anything about, oh, it's an aftermarket grip module. Trust me, that doesn't affect anything. So, and that is an Armory Craft grip module, and you can use code SPN for 5% off on their website if you want to get a grip module like this, or a base plate to go with it, because that feels so good in the hand. Next up, I hate to say it, but my Taurus GX4. This was unreliable right out of the box. I got them when they first came out. This is the one I was so excited about. It looked like the perfect carry firearm. And honestly, it's a great handgun. It has an awesome trigger on it, great capacity. The finish is a little but other than that, everything's great about the Taurus GX4. I hate to say it, but it's true. Right out of the box though, mine was one of the ones that had the delayed striker. So when you'd pull the trigger, it wouldn't go off until 10-15 seconds later. Luckily, I dry fired it first thing at home, And I learned that real quick that mine had a major issue. Sent it to Taurus. 3 weeks later, got it back. They didn't say anything, didn't complain. They fixed it for free. Run 100%, both of my GX4s. 100% reliable ever since. But this was unreliable out of the box. But I love the GX4. The Mossberg MC2C. Just like my other one, or just like my old one, I got a new one. Or just like the Ruger, I got a new one. My old one was plagued with issues, so eventually I just got rid of it. I sent it to Mossberg. They sent it back. Still had issues. I tried everything I could. Failure to feed, light primer strikes, literally everything. But since then, I went out and got a new one because people wanted to see it for reviews, and this one has been flawless. This one has been great. I really like the Mossberg MC2C. Nothing bad to say about it. It's just bad luck. The Glock 28. I hate to say it. This hurts my heart. I feel physical pain right now trying to tell you guys that a Glock is on the least reliable side. But it is. It's just facts. And this is the only Glock I've ever had issues with. And I've shot a lot of Glocks, owned a lot of Glocks. This is the true Glock that just drives me nuts. And what drives me nuts about it is it's been out for 30 or almost 30 years. And they still haven't figured it out. And that's because it probably wasn't tested the way it is with every other Glock in the American market, right? The civilian population. That's where they truly get feedback. That's where they truly learn about these problems. They released the Glock 28 more as like a collector's item. I get that, but at the same time, I would like mine to function a little bit better. But I did change out some springs, and I got this thing running flawlessly. So it is an OEM, or it's not an OEM guide rod or in springs, but it runs. So it is what it is. I don't carry it. I don't trust the guide rod. I don't trust the malfunctions. But it's just a collector's item because I love the subcompacts. This also hurt my heart because I love this handgun. But the Canik MC9 at around 750 rounds, 700 rounds, started having failures to feed, failures to eject, stovepipes, all that. Ever since I got my new guide rod, not a single issue. And I absolutely love this thing. So it's been in my carry rotation a little bit. It's a smooth shooter. I know you're going to crap on me for this red dot. It is what it is. But a good budget setup overall. Runs reliably now. Can't complain. But it was super unreliable. And it sort of made me nervous to think I'd rather have a firearm that's unreliable out of the box that I can send away right away and know it's unreliable versus something that sort of tricks you into being reliable and then you find out later on once you really get to shooting it because you really like it. So the Canik MC9 has been great ever since. No complaints. And what that funny thing is about that is this outlasted every firearm. Outlasted that Sig, that Ruger, that Beretta, that Mossberg, that Taurus, that Glock, and that Canik. This Taurus outperformed them. This Taurus ate every single defensive ammo I've ran through it. Every target ammo has over 1,000 rounds. Not a single hiccup in this firearm. And people call it a paperweight, a piece of crap, say it looks dumb. Hey, it runs. I mean, that's really all you can ask of a firearm. People want all these accessories and all this unnecessary stuff, which I have some of it on my firearms. But if you see most of my carry firearms, they don't have red dots. They just have night sights. But this Taurus Spectrum right here, which is crazy, a $200 firearm that isn't popular at all, actually outdid those firearms. Crazy. Now let's get into my most reliable firearms. It's not a Glock. It's actually my XD. This is over 14,000 rounds through it. This is one of my first handguns ever that I carry. I think it was my second handgun I ever bought. I absolutely love this thing. I shot it last weekend at the range and it just reminded me once again how great this handgun is. Never had a failure with a grip safety. Never had a failure of any kind with this thing. Yeah, it looks sort of worn, but it is what it is. That's what happens when you own handguns and shoot them. Never really carried this thing a whole lot just because of its size and how heavy it is. But actually, thinking about throwing it back in the rotation because this thing is a reliable beast of a firearm. Next up is this Glock 26 build right here, actually. And yes, the slide is different. I did swap out the slide because the slide started wearing down a lot. But this has over 13,000 rounds through it. And I had my first part breakage at 12,000 rounds, and it was actually the slide stop. And it's because I didn't clean it for 3,000 rounds. I wasn't carrying it at the time. I just wanted to test it. And after 3,000 rounds of not cleaning it, the inside of my firearm looked horrific. And that's exactly why this failed. Now, obviously, if I would have maintained it, it wouldn't have failed. But it was more of an experiment to see how it would run. And look it, there's plenty of aftermarket parts on this. Apex trigger, different base plate, different barrel, everything. Obviously, this is a newer barrel, but This thing ran with an Apex trigger, aftermarket ghost connector, back plate, base plate, all sorts of things. And it ran more reliably than all these firearms. Never had a single hiccup until that part breakage. But I'll blame that on cleaning. Next is going to be this Glock 19 right here. This Glock 19 I've never carried. It's never been a carry firearm. It's strictly been a range firearm for me. Home defense firearm, stuff like that. But it's ran great. Has over 10,000 rounds. Not a single issue. Nothing wrong with it. It's just a simple Gen 3 with some grips on it. Millspin base plate. Aftermarket back plate. Ameriglow IDOT sights. And a TLR-7A. Basically bone stock. 100% reliable. Next up, we're going to go with my Springfield Armory Hellcat. This specific Hellcat, I want to say, has probably 7,000 to 8,000 rounds through it. This is my first Hellcat I ever got. And it lasted me through the pandemic. I shot so much steel ammo through this thing. I beat the crap out of this firearm. It runs every defensive ammo ever. Obviously, I just added all these parts. These are all new. So far so good with the new parts. But honestly, before that, a bone stock Hellcat is such a great firearm right out of the box. Same with the Hellcat Pro. They just run. They do their job. They go bang when you need them to. They don't malfunction. They have a backup feed ramp in them that not a lot of people talk about, but I always like to point out the backup feed ramp because that's huge when it comes to malfunctions. And last but not least, my almost stock Glock 27. I do have an Avalanche Arms guide rod in there because it's never given me any issues. And I do have a ghost connector in there. But this thing has ran absolutely great. This is more on the side of 5,000, 6,000 rounds. But not a single issue. I ran a lot of gold dot through this. The Law Enforcement Edition, the cheaper gold dots. I like the Law Enforcement Edition gold dots because they're cheap. So you can test them, and then you can also carry with them. They're only 165 grain. That'll do the job, though. If your firearm goes bang when you need to, you're going to be fine. If you train, you're going to be just fine. Even if all you have is a Taurus Spectrum. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.